We all remember the moment Lewis Hamilton stepped into Maranello wearing the red that legends are made of. The seven-time world champion who conquered Formula One with grace, precision, and unshakable belief was now walking through Ferrari's gates with history on his shoulders. Fans called it destiny. Critics called it his final gamble. Ferrari called it their return to glory. Hamilton, with quiet conviction, promised to bring home the championship they had been chasing for more than a decade. But dreams in Formula One do not come gift-wrapped. And between the headlines and the harsh truth of racing reality, something began to fracture. The SF-25, Ferrari's challenger, refused to bend to Hamilton's touch. The setup window was razor-thin, 1 millimeter too high, and the car would slide like it was on ice. 1 millimeter too low, and it would bounce, scrape, and snap. Race after race, you could hear the frustration bleeding through Hamilton's radio. His voice, once calm under pressure, carried traces of disbelief. He said the car felt unpredictable, unstable, sometimes even dangerous. There were weekends where it flirted with podium pace. Then, next weekend, it tore through its tires like paper and lost rear grip without warning. For a driver who built his empire on precision and trust, this was more than a technical issue. It was personal. You could see it in the way he stepped out of the cockpit after qualifying. Shoulders lowered, helmet held a little too long. You could hear it when interviewers asked simple questions and his answers drifted into silence. This was not just about lap times or points anymore. This was about a champion wondering if he had made the biggest mistake of his career. As the season dragged into its brutal middle, the noise around Hamilton got louder. Rumors whispered about retirement. Analysts questioned if age had caught up with him. Fans, even some of the most loyal Ferrari supporters, started to doubt. Was the magic gone? Was this dream doomed before it even began? Even Hamilton admitted something was missing. Not horsepower, not aerodynamics, but a feeling. That connection between man and machine when every corner feels like a dance. Week after week, that moment never arrived. Until Austin. No one saw it coming. The United States Grand Prix was supposed to be another chapter in a season of struggles. But in the Ferrari garage, something changed. Behind closed doors, Ferrari. Engineers took a risk most teams would never dare to attempt mid-season. They lowered the ride height dramatically. They reworked suspension geometry. They changed how weight transferred under braking and acceleration. It was bold, maybe reckless, the kind of setup that could destroy a race before it even started. But Hamilton trusted them. After months of battling a car that refused to listen, he placed his faith in Ferrari one more time. And when he left the pit lane and pushed through turn 1, he felt it immediately. The difference. The SF-25 was no longer fighting him. It responded. Under braking, it held steady. Through the mid-corner phase, it was smooth, predictable. On exit, when the power hit, the rear stayed locked in instead of snapping out. For the first time all season, Hamilton was driving, not surviving. He later said the car felt alive for the first time. Like it wanted to be pushed, like it wanted to race. That moment was more than a performance upgrade. It was a rediscovery of trust. But here is what makes the story powerful. Austin was not the final chapter. It was the beginning. Back in Maranello, Ferrari did not celebrate. They went to work. Engineers spent nights dissecting every detail from that weekend. Not just lap times or sector data, but the invisible metrics. How the tires behaved from full fuel to near empty. How weight shifted during high-speed direction changes. How the chassis responded to different levels of brake pressure. They studied surface temperatures across long stints. How the suspension compressed on bumps. how the differential behaved when Hamilton asked for traction. They were starting to understand the SF25 in a way they had not all season. Hamilton was right there with them. More hours in the simulator, more meetings with engineers, more late-night conversations about setups, ride heights, brake bias, power delivery. Because he knew what was coming next was Mexico City. And Mexico does not forgive mistakes. At over 2,000 meters above sea level, everything changes. The air thins. Downforce drops by almost 15%. The engine struggles for oxygen. Cooling becomes a nightmare. It is one of the most unforgiving tracks on the calendar. A place where drivers need mechanical grip more than anything because aerodynamics, the magic that keeps F1 cars glued to the ground, starts to disappear. Most teams would protect what they found in Austin. Not Ferrari. Hamilton looked at Mexico and saw not a threat, but an opportunity. That improved mechanical balance, that stability they found in Austin, could turn Mexico's weakness into a weapon. Better traction through the tight stadium section. More confidence when the rear needs grip and the wings cannot help. Inside the garage, Ferrari engineers were already preparing for war. They reworked the power unit mapping to cope with the thin air. They built new models for tire degradation and pit stop strategy, designed specifically for Mexico's brutal surface. They adapted energy recovery systems so that deployment stayed consistent through the long straights. And for the first time in months, Hamilton did not sound cautious. He sounded convinced. Listen to the way he spoke before the race. No hesitation, no guarded optimism, just calm belief. He said, if Ferrari managed tire wear better than Mercedes, they would fight for a podium. Not points, not luck. A podium. That is not a statistic. That is a shift in mindset. In the Ferrari garage, you could feel the change. The tension that once hung in the air was replaced by focus. Precision started replacing mistakes. Strategy meetings sounded different. Not desperate, but methodical. For the first time this season, Ferrari started operating like a front-running team. Not perfect yet. Not at Red Bull or McLaren's level, but climbing step by step. Hamilton made something clear in those days. This was no longer about just one race weekend or a desperate hunt for a win. He was treating these final rounds like test sessions for the future, not in a careless way, but in the way champions think long-term. He wanted to build systems, rhythms, communication, trust, things that form the backbone of a championship team. He knew the wins might not come this season, but what they were. Learning now how they were unlocking the SF25's potential, how they were rebuilding faith between driver and engineers, that would carry into next year. Because momentum in Formula One is everything. It separates teams making excuses in the midfield from teams climbing back toward the front. And right now, Ferrari's momentum felt different. Not loud, not flashy, just steady, earned, real. Austin did more than give Hamilton speed. It gave him a reason to believe again. And Mexico, well, Mexico would be the proving ground. Was this real progress, or just another false dawn? Another illusion in a season full of heartbreak and hope? But the way Hamilton spoke, the way the engineers moved, the way the car behaved in free practice, everything pointed to one truth. Something fundamental had shifted. This is not the fairy tale ending yet. There are no championships won, no trophies lifted. But sometimes, the most important part of the story is not the victory. Sometimes, it is the moment a team remembers who they are. The moment a champion looks at his car and does not see a mistake, but a future. And maybe, just maybe, this is where the real story of Lewis Hamilton in red begins. Not with perfection, not with instant success, but with struggle, risk, heartbreak, and a single weekend in Austin, where belief returned. Because in Formula One, change does not always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it begins with silence, with a breath before a corner, with a driver who finally feels that the car beneath him is not his enemy anymore. Sometimes that is all it takes to change everything.